Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So, in today's episode, it is going to be an action-packed block shop video all the way through. So, I love block shop. In this entire episode, we're going to be climbing at the Chabanel location of Block Shop. There are 3 locations of Block Shop. We have Chabanel, which is the original one, and then a couple years later, they opened the Hochelaga location, which is where we go to train on the spray wall. And then there is a 3rd location of Block Shop in Mile X, which I actually still have yet to visit. But yeah, this Chabanel location of Block Shop, I think was opened in like 2013 or 14. And for viewers who are not from Montreal or not familiar with the Montreal scene, like Block Shop Chabanel was, I think it's fair to say, the first of these mega bouldering gyms in Montreal. So this place is like the OG mega bouldering gym in Montreal. And it's like, you know, it's been around for so long, the setters are so experienced, so many people train here and climb here, and obviously this place hosts the Block Shop Open. I guess they haven't hosted it in a few years, but it's like a similar event to the Studio Block Masters, where they like bring out some pros and it's a really fun competition. So Block Shop Shab is like, it's the place. It's like the legendary boulder gym in Montreal. And they're also known for like having very hard boulders up, as you can see with what we're trying right now on the screen. So I was excited to come here for some training. We haven't been in a few days. Well, in a few episodes. Obviously we were gone in BC and training at some other gyms in Montreal. So anyway, as I've been chatting, we have been trying this boulder here, and I'm starting to make some progress. This is one of 3 white tapes up in the gym, and white tapes are the hardest boulders at Block Shop. And what they do at Block Shop is they use a combination of V grades and kind of like tape circuits. On this sort of whole section of wall though, they don't list the grades for some reason, so they just have the tape. But all the white boulders are usually, well, they're always graded V12 or 13, so we have just sort of a slash listed here. And then like black is 10, 11. So yeah, this boulder, I wasn't sure if it was the upper end or the lower end of the white tapes. I also was feeling kind of so-so on this morning session here. I was climbing quite early today because I had somewhere to be in the middle of the day. And so I'm like having a session at 9 a.m. Block Shop is asking me to climb this white tape that's put in front of my face, and I'm not able to deliver. But that was my best attempt from the ground in the morning. That second last sloper is really, really bad, and I'm struggling to figure out how to match it. I think here I figured out on this attempt. Yeah, I climb up to the end, and I find this heel hook with my left that I thought I had ruled out earlier on, but when I went and tried it again on this attempt, I made it work, and I found so there's like a little crimp jib on the other side of that, and I found a good way to heel hook it. So I figured out how to actually match that second last sloper and do the last move. And I would revisit that boulder in the second session later today. So this is our morning session. Yeah, so here we are moving on to a black tape, which are always graded V10 or V11. And so, yeah, as I was saying, I think it was just simply because it was quite early. I usually start around 10:30 a.m. and I started at 9 today. So I was definitely feeling like, okay, these Block Shop Shab has a lot of really physical boulders up right now. And I was sort of like, okay, man, this session is going to be really rough. I was actually able to kind of perform decently well on the green boulder. I think it suited my style, but like those blue pinches, and like, especially that mini pinch, I could tell I just was not able to hold those holds very well. And so I would try to save it for the second session and revisit it. And so here we are moving on to another boulder. I clearly had foot first sequences on the mind from the green boulder, and I don't think that is how you're supposed to tackle this purple one, as I realize now. And so this boulder, I would say, was also like quite my style. Some nice kind of slopers that we can also pinch. And you know, when we have these sessions where we're not feeling super good, you can't just not try anything. And so, you know, you have to find some boulders that you can actually try. And so while I was trying this boulder, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, okay, I think I'm really underperforming on this boulder. Like, yes, these holds here, like especially at the end here, they're bad, but I've climbed on these slopers like quite a lot at Bloc Shop. Maddie and I have visited a lot in the past, and I know that I should be able to grab these holds. Like, yes, it's hard, but I should be able to find my way through this top sequence. But I feel like, man, I just can't squeeze these. And so I just said, okay, I'm gonna sort of, this is when I try to go into a mindset where I treat the boulders as just like an exercise that you have to rep out. And I find this mentality is quite important when we're having bad days, and we can tell that we're not even bad days, just like a bad session. We can tell that we're just not quite performing where we think we're absolutely capable of. But at the end of the day, you just gotta train, right? We're here to get our body moving, to work hard, work out, break the muscles down. And so you just have to say, okay, I'm gonna try as hard as I can on this boulder, no matter what, and really treat it like an exercise that we have to rep out. And so that's kind of the mindset I went into while I was trying these physical boulders and not feeling the best. And so here I am finally getting some revenge after dropping the finish hold of this boulder. That one was quite nice, and I really like the style at Bloc Shop. As you can tell by all of these boulders, it's definitely not one of the most comp style gyms in Montreal, and I think it's because they have this really unique style where it's like a mixture of like classic style boulders, even outdoorsy style boulders, mixed with modern and a bit of comp style. It's a very fun style of gym to climb at, and it tests physical strength probably the most out of almost like all of these gyms around Montreal. And so here we are, like moving on. See, this is a good example of like this kind of interesting style I have here. Like this boulder is like, yes, it's comp style-ish, because it's like a paddle move, but it's still like physical with like bad holds and crimps at the start. And so anyway, I put a couple tries on that, and we'll revisit that in the next session. So here we are later in the day, still at Bloc Shop Chabanel for another session of bouldering. And as I was warming up for this session, I was getting super psyched because I was feeling a lot stronger than the morning. And here we go. You can see like I'm just testing the ending out, and immediately I can just stick the last move right off the bat, even though that second last sloper felt like almost unholdable in the morning. I was just feeling like a lot stronger because I started my second session like when I usually start my second session, around 3:30 or 4, but because my morning session was so much earlier than usual, I had like bonus rest, which was super cool. And so now here we are, like already on the second try from the ground in the second session. We're gonna get this end here, and I can just tell immediately while I'm grabbing these crimps, I'm feeling like so much stronger in the fingers. It's giving me confidence. And meanwhile, the morning session was still valuable because I figured out all the moves and I knew exactly what to do, and I could just like flow through all of these movements with confidence. With that being said, this last move here, I was definitely getting a little bit nervous and scared because I was psyched to get a send of a white tape, and so I almost like got too nervous and scared and almost dropped the finish, and I had to try really hard on that last move to send it. And I was super psyched. Like, if you'll notice, at Bloc Shop Hochelaga, which is the other location, we had a session where I did like maybe 2 white tapes in a session or something, but the white tapes here at Chabanel are different. Like they're way harder at Chabanel, always, pretty much. There are no easy white tapes. As you can see, we're moving on to another one, which is graded V13, and is just this line of like terrible holds all the way up. And so getting a send of that green one, like white tape sends at Chabanel are like, I am like so psyched when I am able to do one of them, because they're really, really hard to come by. And so yeah, as you can see, I'm trying this boulder and I'm really struggling. My first attempt was actually not too bad. I did this second move like with the foot cut pretty comfortably, but then I started to really struggle on this boulder like even more, and I started to lose performance on it quite fast. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna climb here again tomorrow. Let me save my skin, because it was really starting to wear out. Like it was actually kind of pink even before I started this whole day of training, and so those yellow holds were really wearing it thin. And so I wanted to save as much as I could to try that boulder again tomorrow while I was a bit fresher. And so now we're gonna move back to this blue boulder from the morning, where I really like when we go up to this mini pinch in the morning. I felt like I could just not engage on it at all, and you can see it's like night and day in the second session here, and I'm able to send this boulder. And that's just the power of double sessions, as you hear me talk about all the time. And if you're interested in trying them, like I'm fortunate enough to be climbing full time and I can do these double sessions, but obviously not everybody can do this. But even if you have like a day on the weekend, or you've just got like a free day, you should really give the double sessions a try and see if it works for you. But that being said, actually, if you're like already accustomed to doing single sessions that are like longer, you might find double sessions worse at first. And it was only after I trained them for so long that I got used to them and started to really like them. So here we are trying the purple jump again. So obviously this boulder looks like kind of a paddle into a hand foot stab, but I tried it a couple times on my first few tries, and the paddle feels so bizarre. Like it really didn't feel close. And so I just try to stick the hold on its own. And so this boulder will feature today's tip of the day. And because I'm trying to stick just the sloper on its own, because it feels like much more doable than actually trying to do this crazy paddle move, something that I really had to emphasize on the sloper in order to hold it as a dyno just on the sloper itself, was to really make sure I kept my center of gravity low. And the rule of thumb that we can apply on this kind of move is that anytime we're dynoing to a sloper, whether it be upwards or in this case it's lateral, and I'd say it's even more important when you're jumping laterally, is to make sure you're keeping your center of gravity as low as possible. And I really emphasize on like where my head is on the launch of the dyno. And this isn't like, breaking news. Like we all know that with slopers, being lower is better because it keeps our center of gravity low and we can hang and really maximize our friction and get as much stick as we can on the slopers. But it's also really important to emphasize this when we're dynoing the slopers, because it's easy to get caught up in like the power we need to generate that we just pull ourselves too high. And that's why I say it's like more important on these lateral dynos, because my first few tries I'm like, okay, I just gotta jump because it's a dyno. So I just jump to the sloper and then I realize, okay, wait, I'm catching the sloper and it's like, eye level, and how am I supposed to hold it? Because it's not super, super good. But when I start to really try and jump low and I have the hold above my head, that's when I feel it's more positive and I'm able to ride it for a bit longer to snag this foot stab on the great volume. So yeah, that's today's tip of the day, is when we're dynoing to slopers, especially when it's a lateral dyno, really emphasize keeping your center of gravity lower to be able to make the sloper more positive upon contact. And this boulder was quite cool. It was very, very tricky. Like the launch position of the dyno is quite strange because I'm like stepping on the corner of the volume and then we're jumping out of these crimps. And then this ending is also really cool. The right hand sloper pinch that we have in our right hand is quite bad, and it's like a super precarious like sneaking up of the left foot in order to set up for the jump. And this boulder was really well set, and one of my favorites that's up at Bloc Shop right now, actually. Very cool boulder. And so here we are finishing off the session with probably the most aesthetic looking boulder in the gym. This is just classic Bloc Shop. Like this is what they were known for, especially when they were like one of the first mega gyms. Is they were really one of the first gyms, I think, to put up these just beautiful lines of like expensive boulders and just really pretty well set mega boulders. And yeah, so this is like a pretty classic Bloc Shop boulder. So here we are the next morning for another session of bouldering at Bloc Shop. And this was, same as the other sessions, just like an hour long of bouldering. And I guess for some context, I don't mention it every time, but the reason on day one that I usually do 2 sessions of bouldering and then on day 2 I only do 1 is because later on in day 2 I also do my hangboard and pinch block and workout that I just haven't been filming all the time because I've shown it a lot and it just is like the same and it's tedious. So I just show like kind of the bouldering. So yeah, later today after this boulder session, I do my hangboard and pinches, and that sort of is like a substitute for another session of bouldering. So we start off the session with trying this purple V10 to really just get the body like as maximally fresh as possible to try this thing. So I was actually feeling really good this morning during the session, probably just as good as last night, maybe even a little bit better. And so I was psyched. I knew that if I started warming up today and I was gonna be feeling like kind of meh, there is no chance on this yellow boulder. Like this thing is limit. These holds are really bad. And so for anyone who hasn't climbed on these holds, they are these like slopers that have kind of like a divot at the end of them. So it's like kind of an edge that becomes a bit more positive. So it's not like I'm just grabbing just nothing, like not just like nothing but slopes, except for that second last hold. So obviously that was a really good attempt I just put on. I was not expecting that, and I started trying like really hard as I made every move because like I was just feeling quite strong today. But yeah, like I was saying, this second last hold that I have in my right hand does not have like this sort of edge of positivity that all the other ones do. And it is just a piece of garbage and it feels like your hand is just grabbing nothing. So I'm like kind of thinking, is there a way I can skip it and just go straight for the finish hold? But there really wasn't. And the finish hold is basically this dual text plate with like a patch of a flat crimp. But it's really precise and it's quite weird to hit this hold, and it's very blind as well. So the last move honestly is probably the crux of the boulder, which just sucks because you're fighting and fighting and fighting up this thing. Like the hardest part about this boulder, so like every move is probably like V9 or 10. So there's no easy moves. They're all like hard moves that you have to be trying hard to do. And so the hardest part about this boulder is that you're just doing the same move all the way up, right? So the compounding factor of like fatigue on this boulder is actually insane. And I haven't felt this on a boulder in a while, simply because, I haven't climbed a boulder that's of this style where it's just, right, left, the same kind of move all the way up on the exact same holds. This boulder is crazy. And what I was feeling when I finished working this boulder, which I'm about to send on this attempt, by the way, to my surprise, was that my elbows, like the back of my elbows, were so sore and like kind of hurting after working this boulder, because the amount of compression required on this, like you are just squeezing as hard as you can every move all the time with your heels, like no let up. And on this attempt here, I don't remember the last time I tried this hard. Like, especially when I got to the end here, obviously I'd never stuck that last move individually. I was just like, had a moment of, holy crap, I'm gonna try the hardest I've ever tried in my life. And I somehow managed to yank myself up to the finish hold. Meanwhile, I'm so fatigued, and get lucky enough to snag the edge with 3 fingers and then somehow not let go of it. That boulder, if it's not evident by just how excited I am of it, is the hardest thing I've done in Montreal so far since we've been here. That was crazy. That was one of those moments where you surprise yourself. I was not ready for that. So I'm like super, super psyched to send that yellow thing. That was really cool. And now, let me just say that I don't even think that was the hardest boulder in the gym. This one that we're trying now, I think is even harder. This is like the big, steep kind of cave at Bloc Shab. And this is usually where they have the hardest boulder up at any given time. They'll always have like a mega white tape on the steep that just starts in the cave and is like 15 moves long to the top. So now this boulder, I was feeling strong today, but that yellow thing just annihilated me. So I thought that I would try to see if I could figure out the moves on this, because I knew there was no chance of sending, like I was too gassed. And this beginning sequence here at the beginning is very crazy. I don't know how to do it at all. So after this little crimp that I like go up to with my right hand, there are 2 little undercling chips on the next volume. But I think the hardest part about this boulder is going to be getting from the right hand crimp into these 2 underclings. Like, I have no idea how to get into that position. So hopefully I come back here soon and I can work this boulder some more, because this one is super cool. And it's potentially harder than the yellow, I think. Unless there's some crazy beta I'm missing to get off this crimp. But if it is really just like, you gotta grab that crimp and somehow like press off the volume to get a high left foot to go into the underclings, that's really hard. That crimp is quite small. So we'll have to see about that. Hopefully I can come back and try it again. So now we're just gonna finish the sessions off with some moderates. And I think I also have something to say. If you remember the first episode that we did at Beta Bloc, since we've been in Montreal this time, I was talking to like, the theme of that episode was like, you know, Beta Bloc is kind of regarded as like one of the hardest gyms in Montreal, if not the hardest. You know, when Chabanel says, okay, I'm gonna set like really, really hard stuff, Bloc Shop Chabanel is the hardest gym in Montreal. Like, because the setters are very experienced and involved with the athletes, so when they know there are strong people around, like the McNamees are coming back for another month as well, they set hard stuff. Like, they put hard white tapes up. And when Bloc Shop Chabanel is not messing around, it is a really hard gym. And so I have to say that, yeah, I realized after today that I think it's slightly harder than Beta Bloc. Like, it'll probably have 1 or 2 harder boulders up at a time than Beta Bloc. And they're like physical style too. Like, usually, like sometimes at Beta Bloc, you know, we'll have like some comp style slab is like one of the hardest boulders in the gym. But here at Chabanel, it's like, no, it's gonna be this 15 move long like mega project in the steep, and you gotta really work it and put the time and effort in to send the boulder, which is really cool. Like, the feeling of whenever I send one of like the white tapes at Bloc Shop Shab, it feels like I just won a competition. You know, like that's the feeling. Like, that is the level that the white tape boulders at Chabanel are. Which is always very exciting, and it's just so motivating to have something like this to chase all the time in training. And that's like the biggest difference between living in Ontario for a while and like just kind of outgrowing it and why Maddie and I moved to Montreal. It's like we didn't have these like things to chase daily in training. Like we didn't have just this excitement and crazy motivation to go try all these crazy cool, really well set hard boulders. And so, like I said, we're just in heaven here, and I'm just always like so inspired by all these gyms and the different styles and the different setters and climbing with strong people. Yeah, I'm just so psyched. So anyway, this ends up being the last boulder of this big Bloc Shop Chabanel tour. This slab V8 was very tricky, as you can see. I put a crazy flash burn on where I tried a bunch of weird stuff, and then I figured it out a bit better on my second attempt here. I was able to finish it up. But yeah, we'll have to come back to Bloc Shop Chabanel kind of soon. If for nothing else but to try that red boulder, because that one is super cool, and I'm just always inspired by like mega proges. So I definitely want to come back and try that again after some probably sessions at some other gyms first. So yeah, thanks again to Bloc Shop for the fun sessions. I think now I probably have to take 2 days of rest actually, because like I said, my skin was already pink going into the first session in this video, and then we did all of those boulders, and so I'm like bleeding now, and I'll probably need to take 2 rest days. Honestly, this is gonna probably be a common thing in Montreal, is that I'll just need to be taking double rest days a little bit more frequently than I normally would in training, because your skin really gets messed up here. So yeah, 2 rest days, and then I don't know where we'll climb yet. I think just being in Montreal as well, I'm realizing how it is going to benefit me to kind of try and keep a more flexible schedule if like certain things come up or I want to climb with someone. So yeah, I'm going to stop planning too far ahead with my locations, and we're just going to like kind of wing it. So I don't know where we're going to be climbing next, but I know that it's going to be a 5-star facility, so look forward to that. Insert Kaji video show here.